What's good, y'all? If you're new to the channel, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. And on this episode, we're going to be discussing the Black Knight Satellite, Part 1. Let's get into it. Now, this article was updated January 8th, 2025 by Anand Palaji. The Black Knight Satellite, a perplexing alien visitor in orbit. Part 1. The Black Knight satellite, a particular object that has allegedly been orbiting for thousands of years, has sparked great speculation, debate, and fascination among conspiracy theorists and astronomers alike for well over a century since it's first detected. When the Black Knight emerged, it was the Russian cosmonaut Sergei Krikalev, who was part of the six-member crew of the NASA STS-88 Endeavour mission, looked out the shuttle window to photograph of unknown objects following NASA's protocol for UFO sightings. Now, I would pause and ask myself, how long has NASA had a protocol for UFO sightings? And during the countless UAP subcommittees that have been going on over the last couple of years, was this information brought to the attention? I don't know if anyone else out there has heard about this. If you have, please leave a comment down below. But the fact that the US, NASA's organization, had a protocol for UFO sightings gives me the impression that this is something that has been well documented and very well known prior to the creation of NASA. But that's just a speculation on my part. Just the fact that they have a protocol for UFO sightings. And now, we have these supposed whistleblowers of these crash retrieval programs. And, I'm at the point now where I'm a little skeptical of a lot of these whistleblowers, mainly because of the likes of Project Mocking or Operation Mockingbird. I'm very skeptical of whistleblowers nowadays, especially when it comes to alien crash retrieval personnel, and they're just coming out here willy-nilly, just talking shit, and they're still alive. But when it comes to Boeing and whistleblowers there or OpenAI, they get taken out without a second thought. So that tells me that there definitely is a psyop when it comes to whistleblowers in regards to the UAP and UFO phenomenon. Let's continue. This here is the Russian cosmonaut who was first to take pictures of the Black Knight satellite. Ufologists relished the opportunity to scrutinize the pictures, declaring they proved the Black Knight satellite was a figment of no imagination, and that has had contended all along. It was an object of alien origin, sent to survey Earth from afar for undetermined purposes. The Dark Knight satellite, or the Black Knight satellite, grabbed the attention of scientists in the early days of space exploration during the 1950s, when puzzling signals were detected in a near-polar orbit of the Earth. It was a time of heightened tensions between the United States of America and the Soviet Union. Inexplicable occurrences whose sequences appeared to have been orchestrated by some unseen hand happened on the back of a series of events involving the United States. These unprecedented episodes broadly included the Battle of Los Angeles during the Second World War in February 1942. And that situation is when orbs were seen over Los Angeles, and the U.S. military, or either the National Guard, began firing at them. Look into it. Pretty interesting stuff. And, it inspired the movie Battle Los Angeles. In February, the detonation of the first atomic bomb in White Sands Proving Ground, New Mexico, in July 1945 The atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August of the same year, sightings of odd aerial objects of pilot Kenneth Arnold in Washington state in June 1947, which were termed the flying saucers. In the press, the alleged crash of extraterrestrial discs and the subsequent retrieval of alien bodies in Roswell, New Mexico in July 1947. And finally, the UFO sightings over Washington, D.C. on 2 consecutive Saturday nights in July 1952 that caused widespread fear in the nation's capital. I highly recommend, if you're interested in more information about these events, you should check out the YouTube channel, The Dark Journalist. Really fascinating individual, has a lot of information in regards to the UFO and UAP situation, and really gives it to you in very easy, plain, straightforward language with plenty of receipts for people to do their own research if need be. Let's continue. Clear signs in the 1950s. On May 14, 1954, bang in the middle of the Cold War, the Aviation Week and Space Technology magazine reported that the United States Air Force had detected at least 1 and possibly 2 artificial satellites circling the Earth, and that they were being kept under close observation. But the Aviation Week article sent chills down everyone's spine because at the time it was published, humans had still not achieved the capability to launch satellites into orbit. You could speculate, were the moon landings really about, landing on the moon, the space race against the Soviets, or was it about observing this so-called, black satellite, or the so-called dome installations on the dark side of the moon? But, I'll leave that up for you guys to do your research, or please leave some comments down below on your thoughts. The shocking information about the mysterious satellites was revealed by Donald Edward Kehoe, a Marine Corps major turned UFO researcher and founder of the National Investigations Committee on Aerial Phenomenon, or NICAP, who claimed government scientists working at White Sands, New Mexico, had made the discovery. Upon tracking 2 satellites emitting radio signals as they circled at 400 miles and 600 miles above our planet, Pentagon officials immediately suspected the Soviet Union. The Russians were not just blamed for espionage, but were presumed to have be in the United States in the space race. If neither the US nor Russia had secretly sent a satellite into space, whom did it belong to? Dr. La Paz was no ordinary scientist. He possessed vast experience in conducting UFO investigations for the U.S. Air Force, particularly the alleged Roswell non-terrestrial vehicle crash incident of 1947. Since the earlier Aviation Week article received tremendous traction amongst the press and public, the Pentagon once again rushed to allay growing fears about unusual outer space objects. They stated in August 23, 1954 Aviation Week report, the scar over the observation of 2 previously unobserved satellites orbiting the Earth has dissipated with the identification of the objects as natural or not artificial satellites. So clearly the scientists who were working on this, I didn't want to bore you with all of the minutiae, but they were tasked with monitoring and observing these so-called satellites. And when they turned out that they were real, they were forced by the US government to tell the public that they were natural and not artificial satellites. You know how it is with the US government. On February 11th, 1960, New York Times article reported that US tracking stations had detected a mysterious dark and silent satellite wheeling overhead on a regular and roughly pole-to-pole or polar orbit. Such an orbit would endow the object with exceptional capability to observe every part of the Earth's surface. The Navy had employed the latest component of the Space Watch program called Dark Fence designed by the Naval Research Laboratory to find and track this satellite. It was a kind of radar tripwire that stretched across the width of the United States to help track of satellites whose radios had gone silent, meaning that this dark satellite had no radio, and if it did, it was not transmitting to Earth. And it's funny how at one point, the US government would be like, yeah, it's just a natural object, nothing to see here. And then, a couple years later, a decade later, yeah, we have some unknown satellites up there that we need to use our own satellite technology, which was probably designed to monitor that anomalous satellite. I mean, half the time, we create technology to monitor or replicate or to combat technology that is being used against us. But let's continue. When the object showed up during two passes of the dark fence, the news was communicated to President Eisenhower and marked top secret. However, through initially classified as Soviet spy satellite, it was later revealed that the object constituted the remains of an Air Force Discovery 5, one of the first photogenic reconnaissance satellites built by the United States that had gone astray. Yeah. Swamp gas off of Venus. Yeah, we know. Scientists vouch for space anomalies. UFO hunters were not the only ones to believe that strange objects detected in outer space were otherworldly. Men of science jumped on the bandwagon too. In 1960, Ronald Bracewell, professor of electrical engineering of the Space Telecommunications and Radio Science Laboratory at Stanford University, published an article in the authoritative scientific journal Nature in which he advanced the possibility of the presence of an alien probe that was trying to establish contact with Earth. As proof of this theory, Bracewell cited the phenomenon of delays in radio signals observed since the beginning of the 20th century. So perhaps maybe this satellite went active when humanity breached a certain level of technological advancement. Just a personal speculation. Let's continue. Oh, and this is a photo of Jack Vallée, very, very incredible UFO astronomer and author. You should really look into his work. In 1961, French astronomer, ufologist and author Jacques Vallée divulged that while working on staff of the French Space Committee, he had taken photos and filmed a bright oil tanker-sized satellite. While tracking its trajectory, Vallée realized it was in retrograde orbit, meaning an east to west orbit, opposite to Earth's rotation. However, when he showed the astounding scientific material he had gathered to his superiors, he claims it was not just confiscated, but destroyed. Yeah, well, the last thing they need is that stuff getting out. The Black Knight name. The first one maintains that it was derived from the 1972 science fiction novel The Destruction of Fina by Soviet author Alexander Kazaksev. In the story, a civilization from the planet Phaeton that was destroyed in a nuclear disaster had launched a Black Prince satellite into Earth's orbit to communicate with us. That sounds awfully like what happened on Mars. Um, Sorry about that, guys. That sounds awfully like something that happened on Mars. Uh, Very, very questionable stuff. Give me a second, guys. Apologies. I got these ladies blowing up my phone while I'm trying to work. But where was I? Yeah, like I was saying, we have these things that, in my mind, like I said, this story from the author, it sounds very similar to what happened on Mars. But that's a whole nother deep dive. But these are things to just kind of keep in mind, that when it comes to whether science fiction books, religious books, or even films and television, drop feeding is a real thing. So don't be surprised when they're telling you the truth, um, right in front of your eyes. But they like to, how do I put it? They like to obfuscate it in spectacle of explosions and actions and heroic, you know, um, attempts, or crazy conspiracies or plot twists or suspense. But in the end, they're just telling you the truth. Manufacturing consent, it's a real thing, especially when it comes to a conscious manufacturing of consent that will shape our perception of reality on a global scale. It's very dangerous what they're capable of doing. The second option is connect to the United Kingdom's research ballistic missile called the Black Knight that was launched at Woomera, Australia on September 7th, 1958. But, we both know that's not it. We know that. We all know that. Alrighty. Black Knight chronology. Now, this is where things get kind of interesting. To gain a proper understanding of the subject, it is important to study key instances of signals received from the Black Knight satellite in chronological order. In 1899, Serbian American inventor and electrical engineer Nikola Tesla erected a large tower at his laboratory in Colorado Springs to study atmospheric electricity and wireless power. While conducting experiments, he intercepted repeating signals from outer space. In February 9th, 1901, Coiler's weekly article titled Talking with the Planets, the feeling is constantly growing, and this is from Tesla, quote, the feeling is constantly growing on me that I had been the first to hear the greeting of one planet to another. It dawned upon me that I had observed something possibly of incalculable consequences to mankind. I felt as though I were present at the birth of new knowledge or the revelation of a great truth. End quote. Tesla believed the radio waves emanating from a satellite orbiting Earth, until finally he formed the opinion that the signals came from an intelligent alien civilization based on Mars. Now, remember what that Russian author's story was about: a civilization on Mars that suffered a great cataclysm due to a nuclear holocaust and was trying to communicate with Earth. In February 25th, 1923, article titled A Giant Eye to See Round the World that appeared in the Albany Telegram, the genius scientist wrote, I believe the Martians use numbers from communication because numbers are universal. Now, a Russian scientist, they used satellites to analyze the surface of Mars, and they came to the conclusion that Mars had suffered some form of nuclear cataclysm, and that due to the radiation that was left over and the way they were analyzing it, it was concluded that it was more than likely artificially made. So you're going to have to start asking yourselves, what's with the obsession of going to Mars? What's with all these weird photos of the rover on Mars? Who's cleaning the rovers on Mars? What truly is on Mars? The global Mars fixation. In April 1933, the scientific community has explained away Tesla's signals as nothing more than radio waves pulsing from a pulsar. But this interpretation is hotly contested by ufologists because uh, Guglielmo Marconi, the Italian inventor and electrical engineer known for his creation of a practical radio wave based wireless telegraph system in 1896, also detected the same signals. But what convinced Tesla that the transmission had come from Mars? Okay, here we go. Beginning with Galileo Galilei's studies of the phases of Mars in 1610, Giovanni Cassini's identification of the planet's polar ice caps in 1666, and Italian astronomer Giovanni Schiaparelli's observation of geological features, which he called canali or the channels, in 1877. So I think what it is the obsession with Mars, and all of these observations on Mars kind of gave people this impression that the imagination can definitely create a narrative, and oftentimes that imagination is influenced by information within the ether that provides us the truth, but it's hidden within the imagination. Here we have the mainstream Caparelli's canal into English as canals led to the popular belief that Mars was inhabited by an extraterrestrial race capable of engineering and agriculture. So that would explain um, Tesla's fascination with Mars. And like I said, Mars is a very interesting observation. And I really recommend people to look into that nuclear stuff I told you about, those Russian scientists and Mars. Whatever the black satellite may be, it's clearly not of man origin. And if it is, then it is of man from millions of years prior, at a time when we were a spacefaring civilization, but due to unforeseen circumstances, whether of outside cataclysms or internal cataclysms, we were blasted back to the Stone Age. Better yet, to the microscopic age. So these are questions that we all need to ask ourselves when it comes to the advancements of civilization and how far advanced was civilization in the past. People like to scoff and laugh at the possibility of a super advanced human civilization living millions of years ago. But when the dust settles, all that's left is stone and rubble. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Lounge Ronin. All things, everything. If you made it this far, please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. And make sure to leave a comment down below and sprinkle in a little bit of constructive criticism, as that will help me and the channel grow. And until next time, stay positive, stay focused, stay true, and much love. Hello there, I'm Kios, Ronin Beatmaker, and welcome to Ronin Art and Music, home to Ronin Music, Lounge Ronin, all things, everything, the Monday Mindset, Rants, and Ronin Reviews. We strive to make holistic and authentic content that aims to improve your individuality, mental fortitude, and peace of mind. If you're new to the channel, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Stay positive, stay focused, stay true, and much love. Now, back to the show.